Hello, Spider Monkeys. I'm Cher McAnelly, head of entertainment at Tumblr and Twihard.
And I'm Lauren Shippen, professional writer and original Team Jacob.
Good to know. Wow, I feel like I just learned a lot about you, Lauren.
If I had to pick.
And this is Dashboard Diaries, a podcast for you, the folks who are in this internet bunker with us. We talk about what's going on our favorite hell site, get into what we like to call Tumblr, do fandom deep dives, and share the times when we've gone feral over a new ship. Lauren, to kick us off, before we dive in to the Twilight saga, which I could not be more excited for.
I am so stoked.
Should we start off with our dashboard confessional and then head on into Twilight? What are you thinking? Or you want to do it the other way around?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do.
For all of our listeners, it is 1,000 degrees in my little recording closet, and so my energy is gonna be weird.
Hey, perfect energy for this episode, baby.
Absolutely. Yes, dashboard confessionals, because of the strike, the SAG strike is still ongoing. If you're listening to this in the future, the SAG strike means that as a SAG actor, I'm not supposed to promote SAG works, and so we're just avoiding talking about what's going on Tumblr pretty much.
Yep.
Which is great. So today I brought a classic post from 2015. This was originally posted in March of 2015, and my reblog is from August of 2015. And it is an ask from Anonymous to Daily Narnia that asks, is Jake Gyllenhaal gay? And then Daily Narnia answered, why would you ask us, a Narnia blog, this? And this is just like a very, very classic Tumblr post. I think this was the first time that I had seen it, like however many months after it was originally posted. And I did tag it with Romble, rolling on my bed laughing, which I want to make a thing now.
Love that.
Like there's new slang that's like jomple or something. Like I was literally reading about it today because it's Ijbol. Ijbol. Which stands for, or it's pronounced Ijbol. Sorry, Ijbol. I just burst out laughing. Apparently, is the new lol or raffle. And so if we're
like
adding
that
to the canon of shorteners, then I would say Romble. Let's bring it back.
Let's Romble.
Let's bring it back from nowhere. It was never anything.
But now it's here, and I think that's beautiful. Mine, I do. My version of Ijba is ALIRL. Actually laughing in real life.
I love that.
Which look, it has actually caught on with a couple of people. My other abbreviation, my piece of slang that I'm trying to get to catch on is French. Instead of merci beaucoup, I think Merbo is just a great little. And I went to France last year and I started saying Merbo, and let me tell you, not a single person was impressed.
I feel like that is something that French teens would be into. Merbo. If you're listening to this and you're a French teen, bring it to your friends.
S'il vous plaît.
What about you, Cher? What do you have from your archives?
So I have two posts this week. I couldn't pick just one. One because I have a good story associated with it, which, as you can see in our episode notes.
Cannot wait.
And then the other one we'll get to momentarily. Okay, so this post is from, I believe I reblogged it in 2016, in August 2016. And it's a gif of Pope Francis arriving to a bishop's meeting, and he pulls out the tablecloth on the altar like a magician without having any of the candles or anything on top move, and then it pans to the cardinals who are shocked. I love it. I can't believe it's a real thing.
I had forgotten about this. Well, is it a real thing? I always assumed that it was.
Is it? It's gotta be. It's right. His face doesn't look.
I don't know.
It's not.
No, it can't be. It can't.
No,
be
it's not real.
Yeah,
There's no way it's
way.
real, right?
But I do love.
I was like, this is pre-AI, but it's very convincingly done.
I do love, that whenever deep fake or AI technology takes another step, the first thing people do is apply it to the Pope, like Balenciaga Pope earlier this year. We love to.
Oh my god, I love Balenciaga Pope. Oh my god. So yeah, this GIF, which is very unlikely real, but had me fooled because. which ties, honestly, Lauren, so perfectly into the story that I'm about to share.
Just so that our listeners know, I open up our document that we work off of, our shared document, and there's just a note next to Cher's link that says, reminder to tell Pope Baby Wall story, which I am all ears. That got me intrigued. That was a hook.
I try. So I am a very gullible person. Unbelievably so, as you can see from the last 2 minutes. And when I was living, I lived with one of my best friends for 7 years, like all throughout college and after, and she very quickly realized that I'm a very gullible person. So she would feed me little pieces of misinformation. And usually remember to tell me that they are fake like a day or so later, but sometimes forget. Oh, no. And this is one of those times where I was misinformed and she forgot. So we were watching a television show that I am not going to say the name of, but it involved a pope who was not
old,
an older man. And we were watching the show, and like at one of the opening scenes, the pope is like, there's like a whole bunch of like babies or something. It's like a very like bizarro kind of dream sequence thing where like the pope comes out at like, it's a very like trippy scene. And she turns to me after we've watched this scene and she goes, did you know that Catholics believe that when a pope dies, the new pope is picked from a wall of babies in heaven and then sent down to earth? And I was like, this is ridiculous information, especially because I've gone to Catholic school since I was 5.
Oh, so they were keeping the secret from you.
How did I miss out on this key Pope baby wall fact after all these years of Catholic school? And she's like so convincing and so dead. And I was like, really? Oh my God. And I was like, you didn't. And she was like, yeah, I can't believe you didn't know about this. Like, it's honestly shocking. Like, I learned about it in one of our, classes in college. And so she leaves me with this piece of misinformation. And it's like, it now exists in my head. And like a month and a half later, I'm like on a date and the new episode, like there are like new episodes of the show are still coming out. And at this point, like I was behind on the show. And so he and I are talking and we end up going back to my place to like watch an episode of this show.
Incredible end to a date.
And so, yeah, this is a sexy date. It was a great date. And so we're watching the show, and naturally, I have to share this critical piece of information with him. He also went to many years of Catholic school, and I was like, they've been keeping it.
He doesn't know about the Pope baby wall.
He doesn't know about the Pope baby wall. And so the show comes on, and I turn to him, and I say the whole Pope baby wall spiel, and he's like, there is no way that is true. Like, I guarantee you, like, that is bullshit. There's no way. And I start Googling, like, Pope baby wall of babies, Pope Catholic belief, and am not finding anything. Because I had said to him, I've been like, this is a thing, this is legit, like, I promise you. My friend told me I trust her, because she would never steer me wrong. And anyway, long story short, like, later that day, I am talking, or like the next day I'm talking to her, like my roommate, and I was like, dude, the Pope baby wall thing, like I was on this date and I told him about it. He had no idea. I Googled it. It's not anywhere. Like, what the hell? And she's like, oh my God, Cher, like I remembered the other day that I left you with a piece of misinformation, but I couldn't remember what it was, but I knew you were walking around with this lie in your head, but I couldn't remember what the lie was to tell you what is wrong. And she's like, and that was the lie. So that's the Pope baby wall.
I'm genuinely crying.
Story.
I'm laughing so hard. That is, first of all, oh my God, there's so many things I love about that story. The first being, now the phrase Pope baby wall is in my vocabulary and is almost certainly going to be the title of this episode. And then also, I love hearing about psychological warfare between roommates. See, but now you have that story to tell on dates. That's a great story.
Exactly. Right? And so she gave me the best gift of all, honestly, is the Pope baby wall story.
Oh my God. And did you go on a second date with that person?
Yeah, we actually dated for quite a while.
God, amazing.
So, yeah. And he is aware that the Pope baby wall is not a thing.
Okay, good. The misinformation was not being passed forward and forward.
I will say, I do think at no point did he really think it was a thing beyond like 5 seconds into me telling him that, but still.
It was good to clarify. Yeah.
Really, yeah, good to put it out.
Well, I don't know how we can possibly move on from that, but what's your second piece of archive?
Anyway, I don't even know why I picked 2 when Pope Babywall is such a thing. I'm almost like,
Let's have a palate cleanser before we move into Twilight, you know?
Perfect. Perfect palate cleanser. This post, which I think is also from 2016. I don't know if you guys remember the trend or like meme in, you know, like the mid 2010s where everything was like jort formatted.
I remember
it well. Like, yep. If you know, it was like adding the J of Jean to a word. And so this is a lovely staff post that the creative geniuses on the Tumblr design team at the time made, which is it's a set of overalls with the Tumblr logo on it. And the caption is, "Jost Jennything from Jennywhere, Justimise Jeverything, Jand, Jind, Jand, Jollo, Jat, Jow, wait,
Jand, Jind, and
you?
Jand, Jollo, Jut, Ju, Jov,
Driate, Jor, Drown, Jumbler, Jlog, Jade."
It sounds like there's something going wrong in both of our brains right now. This is a very good post.
and then someone ship post generator reblogged it and said burn in hell.
Proper response.
Which is fair. So, and if you were wondering, the translation,
yes,
for all those that don't speak Jort, is post anything from anywhere, customize everything, find and follow what you love. Create your own Tumblr blog today.
Easy. So clear.
Yeah. So, but it's exciting to learn a new language as well, because I think Jort is really a beautiful
it's a beautiful language. It really
language.
is. Yeah. And not enough people speak it anymore. You know, it's dying language.
No, they don't. The Twilight Saga by author Stephanie Meyer. If you are not familiar, I have questions.
How could you not be?
Yeah. But also I have like questions, concerns, but also positive. Like, I feel like I could learn from you as well, if you know what I mean.
Well, so here's a question I just had as I was thinking about this: the horrifying realization that people who were born in 2010 are now 13 years old. And that's terrible.
Yes.
So, you know, because when did the first Twilight book come out? It was like 2004 or something like that. So it's like there's plenty of teenagers walking around now who were not yet born when Twilight was at its frenzied heyday.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to, you know, teach the youngins the ancient texts.
The ancient texts. Our history is beautiful and complicated, and sparkly in the sunlight. Yeah, the first book came out in 2005.
Okay.
There are a total of 4 books in the Twilight series. The inspiration for this episode was at the end of our last episode. We were talking about, honestly, unprompted and for no good reason, I brought up the fact that I took a sculpture class my sophomore year of high school. And later on in the episode, we were talking about Twilight, and it came out that every sculpture I made that entire year was Twilight inspired because I was such a Twilight fan.
Obsessed with that.
So we thought a Twilight book episode would be great. And I could not be more excited to talk about this, you know, life-defining series. You know, I made friends, I laughed, I cried, I read it on a lot of weekends over and over again.
Do you want to give listeners a brief overview of like the broad plot and characters of Twilight? Like just the sort of the main folks?
Absolutely. So Twilight is based actually off of a dream that author Stephanie Meyer had, if you were wondering. And she had a dream that a girl was sitting in a field with a sparkly man, and they were talking about their love for each other and about how like he was a vampire and she was human. And this dream prompted her to write this series of books, which, shocker, are about a vampire falling in love with a human girl, woman, person. Bella is her name. And essentially, like, the TLDR is her parents are divorced. Her dad lives in Washington. In Forks, Washington. And she moves there to move in with her dad, and which is where she meets Edward Cullen. Edward Cullen is a 17-year-old, allegedly, at her school. He is, but as it turns out, he is over 100 years old. And he, lives with his vampire family in Forks. They live there because the overcast weather means they can frolic around in the daytime without, worrying about what happens in the sun. Unlike a lot of other vampire stories, they don't burn in the sun, they sparkle. And I think that's fun. Yeah. And so that's, and Edward falls in love with Bella because he thinks her blood smells really good, which, I don't know, vibes are kind of off there the more you think about it, but sure. And he can read people's minds, but he can't read hers. And he was like, can't figure you out.
That's
what
right.
Are you thinking?
Yeah.
And so there's, of course, so much more, there's, of course, werewolves. And there's a werewolf who's in love with her. So there's a love triangle there, naturally, and quite a few other, adventures along the way. And that's Twilight. And it really had a chokehold on pretty much every on teenage culture, I would say, in the early thousands. It was a big deal.
Yes.
Big moment. And it's continued to be popular. I was looking on Tumblr to see kind of how often the books are talked about, how many people are following. There are 177,000 people following the Twilight tag.
Wow.
There are on average about 1,500 new posts a month made tagged Twilight on Tumblr. And Twilight was one of the top books on Tumblr, the Twilight series, were in the top books on Tumblr from 2019 through 2022. I went as far back as 2015 and in our year in review because we started around then. And it from 2015, 2016, 2015 through 2018, it wasn't on our top books list. The reason behind that, I think, is because obviously the books had already all come out at that point. And those years, we only did top 20 lists. And then I think in 2019, we started doing longer list of books. So it was books that were, more current and talked about. And then kind of like the heritage or popular books that were consistently talked about.
That makes sense.
So I think that's the reasoning behind it. And I do think if we had a top books list that was top 50 in those years, Twilight would have been on it.
I pose an additional theory. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
But so are you aware of sort of I'm assuming you are, the Twilight Renaissance that's been talked about on Tumblr the last couple of years?
Yeah.
So in April of 2018, a Tumblr user called Cock McStuffins, that's their username, they posted, Bella was lucky she didn't have a cell phone of any kind because your boy Edward would be blowing up that phone 24/7 going, saw a snail today, effervescent, or some shit equivalent. And this post now has almost 500,000 notes, but this post became effervescent became a thing. That was a whole snail renaissance on Tumblr as well.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, it's that was 2018. That was mid 2018.
Honestly.
I do wonder if that's why 2019 Twilight sort of got back into the main the main tags.
I honestly think that absolutely could be the case. All it really takes on Tumblr is one post to create that kind of tsunami.
As we know with Goncharov, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. As we know with Goncharov, one post and then suddenly there's an entire film, overnight. So, I mean, I think that Effervescent did cause the Renaissance.
Wow. Yeah, well, especially since Goncharov was based off of a post that had been on Tumblr for a little while, right? And then for some reason it just got picked up and became big years later. And so I do wonder too, it's was this post just sort of going around in this person's mutual circles, and then it broke kind of the containment of that. And all of a sudden, it was 2019 and everybody was talking about Twilight again. I don't know.
Honestly, I think that absolutely sounds so likely because Tumblr is such a timeless platform. Posts kind of float around and continue circulating, and you never know when one years later might blow up or continue going past your dashboard over and over and over again, which I think makes it so unique. And it is really, it's Tumblr is both a time capsule, but also timeless and also timely. It's is Tumblr the multiverse? Much to consider.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it is.
Yeah. It on Tumblr, it is both no time and every time.
That's true. Whoa. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Tumblr is the ultimate liminal space.
It is.
But so I want to know, I'm a couple years older than you. And so I think maybe like when the first Twilight book came out, like I was a little bit behind the ball just because like it was being marketed towards maybe, well, no, wait, it came out in 2005. I was 14.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think by the time that like the series really got going, because I think I read the first Twilight book after the second one had come out. And you know, I read all the books and I enjoyed them, and I, you know, talked to people about them in my real life who were also reading them because everybody was reading them, but like it did not have a hold on me particularly. And so I want to hear your journey of like when you first heard of Twilight and like all the way through now. Like just tell me your life story through the lens of Twilight.
Oh, wow. What a specific lens, and honestly, what a journey that lens is. I started reading Twilight. I think I read it in 2007. I started high school in 2007, and I think I started reading it my freshman year of high school. I'm trying to remember when the bleep came out because I read it like a year or two before. Okay, 2008. So that makes sense. Okay. So I first read it in 2007, and I can't remember how I got into it. Like what inspired me to buy Twilight. I was obsessed, and like I still very much am with this kind of genre. Like I read every kind of YA book that I could get my hands on. Like I love, like I read all of the, like the Gossip Girl series and all of those over and over again, but also like anything, the Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging series, I read until they fell apart. And so I would just go into bookstores and like try, like, grab like so many books from the YA section. Especially I preferred if they were, part of a series so that I could read multiple. Totally. And so I honestly think I just found Twilight, like I was just in the YA section of like a bookstore one day and picked it up, especially like, look, like vampires, romance, like
what more do you need?
What's not to love? Come on. Check and check. So I started reading them and was just immediately like obsessed. And I very much am the type of person who, when I get into like a series of books, like I will read it and, nonstop until I finished and like read it over and over and over again. I couldn't tell you how many times I read the Harry Potter series. And so, I got really into Twilight. I read it a bunch my freshman year, my sophomore year, which is when I was in that fantastic sculpture class, which my parents sent me photos of the sculptures. Some of that I'm really struggling to figure out how I tied it back into Twilight because the sculpture class had, like, each sculpture we did had rules. Like, you had to, like, incorporate specific design elements or, things, like aesthetics, like, things like that. Like, shapes. Like, one had to be just, like, could only include, like, triangles or things like that. Like, it was so, and I was like, how did I manage to? But, like, I found a way to, like, in my head, justify it. Yeah. So, but I will show you all of them and we can post them. So, like, one is very obvious. The one that I texted you. The others, I'm like, how did I even associate this with Twilight? And my final project, I think, honestly, was so much that I threw it away because I was like, it ended up being so dramatic.
Oh my God.
So it was called Pulling on My Heartstrings. Incredible. And it was like a paper mache heart that I wanted. The dream that I had in my head was I made this like heart sculpture and I was gonna drill a bunch of holes through it and like put clear string through it and have it suspended between two pillars and have it like, there's so many forces at play, like pulling their hearts in different directions.
I love
like that
kind
of thing. And in practice, it's really hard to drill through like solid paper mache to get all the way through with like thin pieces of, so I ended up putting nails all over the heart and tying it up that way.
That's cool.
So instead of this like cutesy little heart, it was like this very intense, like heart covered in nails that I presented as my final project. And I was one of the younger people in the class. A lot of people generally took like sculpture their senior year to finish their art requirement. But I just couldn't wait to make my Twilight fan art.
Oh yeah, you had to do it.
I did my little final presentation, and after I was like, by the way, like this was the plan for it. I didn't mean to have the nails in it like that. Just I had to adapt. And someone was like, "Who hurt you?"
You were just living your Twilight core life.
I was like living, literally. I was like, I'm actually reading New Moon right now. So
the nails are.
That's where I am. Yeah, the nails are Edward's absence. But anyway, so I got really into it. Two of my best friends from high school I met through my like or like became close with through my obsession with Twilight. My friend Christina sat next to me in that class and we got to talking about it. When you were interested or when you started getting into Twilight, actually I'm on like 17 different story like threads right now. let me center. You said you got into Twilight what, like in like 2007 or
I think it was probably like
2006
probably. Like I think I was maybe you know what? Actually, I'm wrong. It would have been my freshman year of high school, which would have been 2005. Okay. So it would have been because my sister is 3 years older than me, and so she was a senior when I was a freshman. And I definitely read the first book when she was still at home. Because she did what you did basically, where she like went to the library and looked in the YA section and read Twilight, and then she was like, I think you'll like this. And so she, passed it on to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I probably read it in 2005, 2006.
And how into Twilight were you? What was your experience with the books?
I remember like when you're 14 and you can read a book in like 2 hours, like that was sort of what it felt like, right? Where the first book I read like that. And I enjoyed it. Like I wanted to see what was going to happen. And then I guess I had to wait for the next books to come out. And I did buy the next like two or I bought the rest of the books. Like my sister and I sort of bought and shared a copy and passed it back and forth. And like, I enjoyed it, but like, it definitely was not like one of my favorite series. Like it wasn't something that I was like anticipating the next book for. It was just sort of like part of this like very large reading diet that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm assuming that was not your experience.
Mine was like a little different. You seem very chill and like, oh yeah, I read these books and now I'm on to my other books. And I was like, I'm going to only read these books obsessively actually for years.
So what was it about Twilight that like just like hooked its way in your brain?
I honestly I think like I'm such a romantic. I especially was like in high school.
Yeah.
And I just think like the kind of not forbidden love, because it's not really like for like it is. Well, yeah, it is based on the Volturi. They're like, that's not allowed.
Right. Yeah.
But like I kind of love to like, one true love, like loving someone so much with like everything you have kind of like romance.
Yeah.
And I feel like Twilight like had that in spades. Like it was at no point in the 4 books do you think Edward is like anything but like totally in love with her.
Yes.
And one of my biggest pet peeves with kind of titles like adventure romances, which I was super into in high school and like I still like, like Outlander and things like that. Like I've read a couple of those books. There are a lot of them. I want to eventually read all of them, but they're quite substantial reads. Are that the love interests never get to be together. They're always separated. One is captured, one is, and like, other than, the second book, which it did bother me. And I actually, that was always my least favorite because that is a big theme is like Edward not being there. But like, I liked that they were actually like together and as a like, as a couple dealing with things instead of the entire thing being like the entire conflict always being things that separate them. Totally. Which I think like especially like as a romantic, like, I don't know, like high schooler. And I was very much into that. I feel like I've told you about the whole, like the Cher cut that my friends call it, where I'll turn off like a movie or show or like, I'll turn off whatever I'm watching if it gets to a point where like it makes me too sad or like I don't like it. Like I'm very quick to do that. And I think like Twilight I didn't do that with Twilight because I was like, oh, like it's so obvious that they're gonna be like, it was very much like you knew it was gonna be a happily ever after kind of story. Totally. In one way or another. Yeah, and I think that's totally what. Yeah, and it was just like it was a quick, easy read. Yeah, and also anything to do with like vampires and like that kind of like fantastical. Like I actually am now remembering like. I was looking back at my Facebook statuses ages ago. I don't even know the last time I logged into Facebook, but I do remember I was reading back my early thousands statuses, and one of them was, like Cher is I wish I was a vampire, and I'm just like, oh my gosh,
that's incredible.
I'm just need to sink into the ground right now.
See, I think that might be one of the reasons that like it didn't totally consume me, is that like even to this day I don't actually find like vampires sort of inherently intriguing, like for whatever reason. Like when it comes to sort of supernatural things or magical things, like that's not typically my way in. That said, I do enjoy a lot of vampire media. Like I'm loving the new all the things I'm going to mention are all TV shows. But like, there are TV shows.
All the new vampire shows.
All
yeah.
the new vampire shows.
Are you enjoying the interview-based one?
Yes, I am, very much. And around the same time that I started to read Twilight, I also got into a spin-off of maybe the most famous vampire show of the 90s about a broody vampire living in Los Angeles. And I really loved that show a lot. But like, yeah, there was something about sort of reading vampire stuff that just didn't quite, like, I think Twilight was pretty much one of the only vampire book series that I read. And also it's really interesting hearing you talk about like the love story and why it worked for you, because that makes complete sense to me. And I think the reason that I was always like more Team Jacob than Team Edward is because I tend to be more drawn to the like, either we're friends and we're discovering this new dimension of our relationship, like a childhood best friends to lovers type thing, or enemies to lovers. Like I love those sort of those opposite ends of the spectrum. And the sort of devoted soulmate thing is just like, there aren't that many pieces of media that I can think of that have that, where like I went completely, ape shit over. Not to say that they're not good, but like, it's just not the thing that like, really scratches at my brain.
That wasn't like the page turner for you.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, like what, and like that's what caused so much, discourse in the fandom, Team Edward, Team Jacob, and like how people felt. Because I will say, honestly, there were, I mean, they both were pretty problematic in tons of different ways.
There's a lot.
Especially like as adults being like, there's so much to unpack here. So like, disclaimer, I mean, showing up in someone's bedroom while they sleep to watch them dream is weird and creepy, and you shouldn't do that. That's a no-go. You shouldn't stop people from going places by like taking the catalytic converter out of their car so that they don't drive to see their friend because you have made a unilateral decision that she can't see him. Stuff like that.
Not cool. Not great.
Not super, super cool. Things that were modeled to me and I was seeing as positive when they are not positive, the persistence.
Yeah, like things that if anybody less hot than the people doing them were doing them, it would be unacceptable in society.
Like the SVU episode, honestly,
yes, exactly.
Right? Like, it's so true. And I realized like how much I internalize these things as these are positive in relationships, like someone being like not taking like no for an answer, like in that way, or someone being possessive and jealous and like things like that, being like, oh wow, like that means he like really like, or this person likes me a lot.
Right.
In my, 15-year-old brain, I was like, they love each other and they get to love each other forever because they're vampires. You know what I mean? And I realized like looking back at these forms of media that I still like have that nostalgic soft spot. I have not reread it since. I recently, like, I was home and I flipped through it and I was like, wow, this writing is definitely very YA. Like, it's not something that's drawing me in right now, So it's not a thing I'll read. But I definitely have that nice, like, nostalgia for it. But you also look back and you're like, there's I think Mike was the one who was the least
problematic.
He was like, you want to go to prom with me? I like you. Yeah. Like, I'm going to be pretty chill and normal about stuff. Like, he's like, and imagine, I would honestly love, how they did Midnight Sun?
Yeah.
Twilight from Edward's Eyes, which I actually never read. I should.
Neither.
But I was like, I don't need to. It's probably just like, she's effervescent, But I want Twilight through like Mike's eyes.
Yes. Oh my God.
He's like, what's going on with these two weirdos? They seem pretty intense in calculus.
I wonder if that fic exists. Like, I wonder if someone has done a sort of Mike perspective or like one of her friends' perspective of like, man, like I'm worried about Jess. Jess.
Yeah. Like, what? I would be so concerned disappearing for days on end. So intense and dramatic. And I also just have so many questions about, this could be a 7-hour episode, so I know I won't keep going on, but a couple things. Like when Jasper, loses it at Bella's birthday party because she gets a paper cut, what does he do in any class that he's in?
Yes.
People get nosebleeds, people in school, like, are often like getting in scrapes of one way or another. People play sports. Like how could he not handle, like, I'm confused. I have questions.
There's so many questions.
I think there's a lot of plot holes, but I wasn't there for the plot,
Well, yeah. And it's like, I think that when it comes to stuff that's, speculative fiction, supernatural fiction, whatever else, it's like you can suspend a certain amount of disbelief around that kind of stuff. I do have a question for you, just talking about the sort of, devotional, very intense, but like now that we're older, seems problematic stuff. Did you ever read, and we should just talk about it in general, 50 Shades of Grey?
So I never read 50 Shades.
Okay.
I watched the, you know, the other adaptation of the first film of the first book. God, I'm so bad at the not. Like,
I mean, it's sort of impossible. We're making a good faith effort. That's all that can be done.
Yeah. And then the Ever After series, which 50 Shades of Grey was fanfic of Twilight, and then the Ever After series on Wattpad was fanfic of 50 Shades of Grey.
No way. Oh my gosh.
Which is just so unbelievably meta, and both of which have turned into other forms of visual media.
Right.
Like, which is just...
That's bonkers.
I mean, yeah. Twilight's existence spurred, like, 50 Shades, which was a whole other cultural phenomenon, which then spurred another, like, albeit smaller, but very popular, especially in, like, the Wattpad and, like, YA and, like, fic circles, the Ever After series, which, again, was, like, such a phenomenon. So, like, it's just the power. Twilight's impact is pretty wild.
Yeah. And I feel like just more vampire books, even ones that had been written at the same time and published at the same time, just, like, became more and more popular after Twilight's success because people were just hungry for more of that stuff. And, like, I'm sure the same thing happened in the 90s with the Interview with a Vampire series, right? Of, like, that spurring, like, Anne Rice, you know, sort of spawning a renaissance of vampire media. I do see in your notes here...
And True Blood.
Oh, True. Yeah, that's right. True Blood.
True Blood's the book series, which the True Blood books came out well before Twilight, I think. Yeah. Because... then the other adaptation happened right around the time that Twilight came out.
Right. And, like, the Vampire Diaries book series, which was, like, very long and extensive. And, yeah, I mean, there were so many of them. And a lot of them did get adapted into other things, which I think, like, shows the success of that particular genre.
Yeah, the Mortal Instruments as well. That has some... Mortal Instruments
that was
initially
fanfic
of as well?
Harry Potter, I believe.
That was
right?
fic of Harry Potter, right? Which, again, like, it's so wild how these fics become, like, their own entire, like... It's so separate from Harry Potter, though it was fic of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things I shockingly did not read. I didn't read the oh gosh, what was the one you just said, the other vampire one?
Diaries?
Vampire Diaries. I didn't read those.
Me neither.
And I am shocked that I didn't, given my, like, deep obsession with Twilight. How did I not even discover them? You know, like, that's where I'm like, I was reading this book, like, these 4 books over and over and over again. Meanwhile, there is so much other, like, media as a teen I could have consumed. I don't think Vampire Diaries would hit the same for me if I read it today. But, like, you know, but yeah, it's so interesting. And I also, like, the ebb and flow of vampires, like, in media being either terrifying or sexy or terrifyingly sexy is really interesting as well, because I think in, like, the early thousands, vampires were really in kind of they're a terrifying kind of, like, not sexy type thing, at least in, like, the vast majority of media. Not all of it, of course, but a lot of the things that we were seeing, I consider myself quite a nice person, and one of the not very nice things that I did in high school, which is, like, laughable when I actually say it out loud, but when Facebook came out with Honesty Box, do you remember, like, Honesty Box, you could, like, anonymously message people stuff on Facebook?
No, I don't remember that at all.
It was, like, one of those Facebook apps. It was a huge thing at my high school, and people would, like, anonymously send people, like, each other stuff. Like, oh, I, like, XYZ had a crush on you, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I sent a girl, like, an Honesty Box message that says your boyfriend looks like a vampire, which, rude, honestly. But, like, if it had come 2 years later, I would have been complimenting her,
absolutely.
You know? Like,
and who knows? Maybe she was into that. Maybe
I hope she took it as a compliment.
Yeah.
You know what?
I love that that's the meanest thing you've ever done.
I'm such a bully. How could I?
I do, speaking of sort of, you know, the changing tides of vampire media, I do see in your notes here that you have written down Dracula Daily, and I'm curious sort of what the connection between Dracula Daily and Twilight is.
Oh, so, I mean, I am very, very interested in, like, the cultural phenomena that, like, is Dracula Daily.
Totally.
And the fact that it kind of, like, the chokehold that it had on Tumblr last year, and I think it's back again. It's actually something that I keep saying, being like, I need to follow along and, like, actually actively engage in this. But I just think it's interesting, I feel like Tumblr likes to call itself, or, like, you know, like, I've seen a lot of Tumblr users call Tumblr, like, the monster fucker website.
Definitely the monster fucker,
and we definitely see that a lot in a lot of media, but I think it's so funny that, you know, like, Dracula could not, like, I don't want to say it couldn't be more different than Twilight, but, like, it's
quite different
than Twilight. And I love how dedicated, like, and like how it has gotten this new life, like this like very like almost 100-year-old book has gotten this new life through Dracula. Or is it
I think it's over 100 years old. Yeah.
Over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right? This like because was it from the 1800s?
It was 1800s.
Like, yeah, okay. I was like, for some reason I was like 1926. Don't know where I made that up. Here I am spreading more misinformation. Pope Baby Wall and Dracula was in the 20s. Like. Anyway, but I just think it would be interesting if someone did Twilight daily.
Oh, right, because they are her like, are they her like diary entries? Is that how the
kind of
book
like,
is written?
It's like first person.
Yeah.
So it's through her POV. So like I feel it's kind of separated in like time, like, you know, it's chronological. It's first person.
I feel like someone could
like
organize a reading group, because obviously they couldn't publish the chapters in the same way that you can with Dracula Daily. But you could organize like a reading group to be like, all right, on this day we're all going to read this chapter and then we're going to talk about it on Tumblr. Yeah, right? Like I just think there's just a lot of fun that could be had, just because, you know, some iconic quotes in there, of course. Oh yeah. Well, that was one of my other questions for you, which is that like I think the sort of the Twilight Renaissance of the last couple of years on Tumblr has been, at least in my view, sort of more on the like lovingly poking fun at and feeling nostalgic over this thing that we all experienced as teens. Yeah. But I'm curious if you're also seeing teens discover the series and like, is there fandom activity on Tumblr for Twilight that is like very just like genuine fan? Like it's not self-referential, it's not nostalgic, but it's like, oh my God, I'm reading this book and I have so many feelings about Edward and Bella. Not that you've like looked through the whole tag.
Yeah, but like honestly, I feel like yes, there is. Like I think a large majority of, or like not a majority, but a large, you know, percentage, potentially, yeah, even a majority is kind of like meme focused stuff. But there still is, first off, there's a lot of, you know, kind of like polls and things like that, kind of about, you know, people's favorite aspects of the books. And then there are a lot of gift sets and things, which I would say are less like that. I wouldn't say that's, you know, someone gushing about the series, but that's less like poking fun and more like just kind of like, you know,
being just genuine,
engaging with the title as like the, you know, as people do when they're, you know, super passionate about other fandoms. I will say though, I haven't seen much like I don't know, the passion that you would see maybe around like some other titles or series, and like that kind of like this currently means so much to me and continues to like be a thing that I think about often, versus like, yeah, like the nostalgia of Twilight, which like, whereas, you know, I feel the same. I like gushed about it and like loved it and like I remember I'm just like sharing every embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me that I've ever done, which is, there are many of them. But I walked into like a grocery store and I bought a red apple, Lauren.
Perfect.
And I walked up to the cash register to purchase my apple, and I put my hands out like the fucking Twilight book cover. And I was like, I'm buying this apple because it's like the cover of my favorite book. And she was like, okay.
I honestly love that. Like, I love the earnestness of teen fandom and joy. Like, that's amazing. That's so great.
That is like, yeah, I honestly think it was like 10% of what was going on in my brain at any given time, potentially more, for like the years that I was into it. And another, like, there's another book, like, or film related story, which I'm not sure, like, that I have like associated with the fandom, which I wonder if like we should save that for a future date. Or
well, I do that.
Yeah,
I think
like
it would be interesting after the strike to do like an episode on the film specifically.
Oh my God. But yeah, I do think the vibe of the Twilight fandom on Tumblr, or people talking about Twilight, are definitely talking about it in a nostalgic, tongue-in-cheek kind of like jokey way. There's definitely like significantly less earnestness for it, and I do think that's also because we've kind of taken off like our rose-colored glasses as we've, you know, become a little like more adult and like, maybe a little more aware as a society about things. Because I think there are other books and things that people continue to be like earnestly into years and years, and that are YA series years and years later. And I definitely don't see that with Twilight.
Yeah.
And I think that's for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense to me. And yeah, I think that the kind of earnest joy to be felt from nostalgia and from sort of engaging in like the fandom of a thing that you once were very obsessed with is its own kind of fandom joy, right? Like it's not any better or worse than like being super into something. It's just like a different dimension of the fandom, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, it's like not everything has to like be your favorite thing forever to have it been like a great, exciting thing that you were a part of. Like the whole like Super Hulock fandom is such a great testament to that. I mean, what a foundation of future fandom was created by that. And I think Twilight, you know, a lot of the same can be said for that as well. Especially because the first book came out before Tumblr existed.
Before most social
it's really
media
interesting
existed.
So I felt the need to make a sculpture with my hands instead of, you know, write fic online. That's the
I love it.
If I'd been like in the fanfic community and reading Twilight at the same time, wow, I would have been unstoppable because I absolutely did create, you know, the Twilight Sims.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I think I probably did that too.
They were next to the Sim Versailles that I made.
That's amazing. Oh my God. No, I mean, like, it's there were only so many avenues in which to express your fandom in 2005, 2006, 2007 if you weren't sort of already aware of fandom spaces. Like in 2006, I was on fanfic.net reading fic and reviewing, you know, commenting on fic and stuff like that. But like there was no Tumblr, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there was no Wattpad, like there was nothing. It was just Facebook and MySpace. And then like, of course, the fanfic websites. But if you didn't know about the fanfic websites, then like, you know.
Well, I had no idea about. And it's really interesting to look back and think about like all the things that I feel like, oh my gosh, I would have been obsessed with this if I had known that it was a thing. I didn't even know about Tumblr until 2012, which I am shocked at. Because I was on, you know, Facebook and MySpace and, you know, I had a Zanga, I had a live journal. Like, how did I miss...
journal, yeah.
How did I, like, I can't believe I deleted mine. I was like, no,
this can't exist.
Will ever find, can never see the light of day. But, like, I can't believe that I missed the boat on Tumblr for so many years.
Yeah, that is surprising.
And, like, it really shocks me. Actually, the same person who told me about Tumblr is the same person who told me about the Pope Baby Wall. So
we owe her so much.
Yeah. Shout out to my roommate, Nishat from college, and also like one of my best friends. But
thank you for your service.
Thank you you've done so much. Your impact, you know. What was your Twilight when you were in high school? Did you have one?
Oh man. I mean, I think like Harry Potter obviously was like really huge for me. His Dark Materials was huge for me. Like that is I would say what Twilight was for you in terms of like these sort of fundamental building blocks of romance, His Dark Materials was that for me. Like, because that is like an enemies to friends to lovers type situation.
Your favorite.
And it's just like, the moment that I knew I was like just absolutely in love with both of those characters was when, spoiler for The Subtle Knife, the second book in His Dark Materials, when they meet each other and Lyra is Lyra, and so she's very, very suspicious of Will, and she asks the alethiometer, the truth teller compass, if she can trust Will, and the alethiometer tells her that Will has killed somebody, and Lyra takes that to mean that yes, she can trust him. And I was just like, I love you. I want to be
love
you.
Lyra.
You are perfect. You are the moment.
His Dark Materials was one of those series where, like, I really love His Dark Materials, but the ending made me so sad because I know, right? It's just not like, why? And also, I mean, it also, His Dark Materials doesn't, like, not only has the enemies to lover, but it also has the, like, multiple gruff, unwilling father figures who then become like adoptive parents.
Man, yeah, I wonder like if my gruff dad Scrappy Teen comes from Lyra and Yorick Berninson, the polar bear.
Right, that's exactly what I was thinking about. My thoughts exactly.
Proto Last of Us. That's what. Joel Miller is just a big polar bear.
Oh my God.
Incredible. I do want to quiz you on your Twilight knowledge briefly. I have 4 questions for you.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm ready.
I'm taking this quiz from The Guardian. We'll post the quiz. But yeah, there were just a couple questions in here that was like, I wouldn't have known the answers to most of these. So I'm curious to hear what you think. It has multiple choice. All right, so question 1.
Okay.
In Twilight, Edward recalls how he first became a vampire, but why did Carlisle Cullen bite him? A, because it was funny. B, to save him from dying of the Spanish influenza. C, so he could join the Cullen coven. Or D, to save him from chicken pox.
B, the Spanish influenza.
That is correct. I just love that one of the options was because it was funny.
To be funny. Tee-hee. Psych.
All right, number 2. A detail I do not remember from the books at all. But Bella believes that Rosalie hates her. Why does Rosalie act strangely around Bella? A, because she fancies Edward. B, this is from The Guardian, so it's British. B, because she's in love with Charlie, Bella's father. C, because she is jealous of her. D, because she believes Bella secretly fancies Emmett.
C, because she's jealous of her.
Oh, interesting.
She's jealous because Bella can have babies and Rosalie can't. And all Rosalie wants is to have a baby. And so she judges her for wanting to become a vampire when that would prevent her from having a baby.
Dang. Wow. I didn't recall that even a little bit. All right.
Yeah, me neither. I think that's what it is.
But you're not sure. Wrong. Yeah, whatever.
I could be wrong, yeah.
All right.
Let me know. Like, email us if I'm incorrect with that fact.
All right, number 3. In Twilight, what book does Bella read in order to make sense of her feelings for Edward? Pride and Prejudice, Frankenstein, Wuthering Heights, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Wuthering Heights.
That is correct. All right. Final question. I did know the answer to this one, but we just have to mention it. Who does Jacob imprint on in Breaking Dawn? Bella, Renee, Edward, or Renesmee?
Obviously, the answer is Renesmee.
I do love that Edward was in there, though. I would read that book.
Did anyone write
the
Jacob imprinting on Edward?
Someone must have.
I must have it.
Send us the link.
Yeah, please drop that link.
What reaction to that when that happened?
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I don't care which way you slice it, where they're like, well, at first he'll be like a friend to her and watch her grow up, but then when she's of age, he'll like date her, but she becomes like an adult at age 7.
Yeah.
Technically, creepy as shit. Also, imagine holding an infant and being like, one day we're gonna bone. Like, that's so weird.
Horrifying.
That's so not okay.
Horrifying.
It's so creepy. No wonder Bella got so mad. I don't know why she decided to be chill about it, because I would be like, stay away from my child, go to the other side of the earth, and like,
we're done. We're no longer
stop
friends.
looking at my kid like that. That's so weird. Like, what?
Horrifying.
Also, Renesmee as a name, I mean, a whole other journey to unpack over there. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that one?
I mean, I was just like truly, truly baffled. Like, I don't think I even had like the wherewithal to be disgusted, because I was just like, huh? Mm-hmm. I think that was my main emotion, was just, huh?
Of literally anyone else. Anyone. There are, how many vampires were there that they knew that like hung around that Jacob could have imprinted on, and that could have had the same kind of general effect of him like ending up with someone vampire adjacent.
Absolutely.
Like, come on, like,
fucking bonkers.
What?
Yeah.
You know what? I wish he'd imprinted on Charlie. I think that would have been.
Yes. Hi, Bella. I'm your stepdad now.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think, what would have been the most ridiculous person for Jacob to imprint on? I'm thinking one of the Volturi.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
Maybe Jane or Alec.
Yeah.
Or both of them.
Characters I totally remember. But that would have been really interesting. And I would have been into that. Enemies to lovers, like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. Imprinted on a 15,000-year-old or however old vampire.
Perfect.
It's like falling apart.
Impeccable.
I would love nothing more. And honestly, that would be way less creepy than the other avenue.
So much less creepy. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You know what has me in my feels? This episode and Twilight.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, yes. The thing that has me in my feels is just like, teenage fandom joy. I love it.
Yes,
it cannot be replaced.
exactly.
It powers the world.
Oh my gosh.
And with that, I'm Lauren Shippen, and you can find me at theLaurenShippen.tumblr.com.
I'm Cher McAnelly, and you can find me at overshares.tumblr.com. This has been Dashboard Diaries, and
May your anons always be loving,
your dash always refreshed,
your gifts always be loading,
and your ships always canon.
May the fix you're reading always be finished,
and the answers you seek always in the reblogs.
Thanks for scrolling with us.